meanings we know depend on the key of interpretation. George Eliot. Discourse can be defined in three ways: language beyond the level of a sentence, language behaviors linked to social practices, and language as a system of thought giving place to discourse analysis as a discipline. The last one is the aspect of our interest. In hermeneutics, a text is the meeting point between an author and a reader, and any kind of object is able to be interpreted. A literary work, a movie, a song, art, advertising. But in linguistics, Chomsky suggests the distinction between text and discourse. The first one refers to written language and the second one to oral speech. To analyze a discourse, we can consider the form and the function, taking into account the intention and the context in two ways: the structure of the text and as a cultural environment that functions as a framework to meaning. Sometimes the form not necessarily responds to the grammatical rules, but it is operable. Let's take a look.
Always with you what cannot be done. Do nothing that I say. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try. Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you?
No, Mr. Stay. Mr. called Jaja Binks. Mr. Your humble.
E.T. phone home.
Les bidoux? Matoka! Polano la matoka. Hein? Banana? Stuart? Macareno? Banana! Banana!
Could you imagine how this character speaks? A common discourse analysis includes to identify the hearer or reader, the context, and the speaker or writer. Remember, discourse refers to any utterance which is meaningful. The discourse analysis depends on the scope and the goal of doing it, but some of the approaches that we could consider for applying it are: discourse analysis, the genre, the historical context in sociolinguistics, the meaning of the word in a context pragmatics, the social influence in the way to speak, it means sociolinguistics, the Jacobson function of language as referential, emotive, conative, poetic, and metalingual, and the speech acts by Austin and Searle. In this case, we could consider assertive acts, deny acts, or directive acts. On the other hand, the discourse analysis includes register, audience, purpose, cohesion and coherence, the tone that could be persuasive, ironic, sarcastic, and motivational, open and closure markers, the context, structure or patterns, and the turn taken if it is the case. Discourse is more than a random set of utterances. It shows connectedness. A central objective of linguistics on the discourse level is to characterize this connectedness. So special attention is required to avoid cohesion and coherence. Bullitt explains that the notion of cohesion was defined as a useful category for the analysis of text beyond the sentence. But in the case of coherence, recent researchers promote an attempt to reach a more user and context-oriented interpretative understanding which is more interactively negotiation and is less dependent on the language of the text itself. In grammatical cohesion, Halliday and Hassan determines a joint of helpful categories for analyzing, like this. Reference, ellipsis, substitution, conjunction, and lexical cohesion. Following Halliday and Hassan, a reference is a presupposition at the semantic level because the meaning is recoverable but not necessarily in the form of the actual word. It could be exophoric or situational, or endophoric, used in textual way. The reference could be a personal by using pronouns, possessive pronouns, and objects of our pronouns. It could be demonstrative reference too, and we have comparative reference. Speaking about ellipses, the starting point is the familiar notion of something left unsaid. It means that the principal action that ellipses represent is eliminating because it's something understood. Substitution instead do not eliminate but replace with anything else in order to avoid repetition. In the case of ellipses, we eliminate words, expression or phrases through nominal ellipses, verbal ellipses or clausal ellipses. In the case of substitution, we have nominal substitutions, verbal substitution, and clausal substitution as well. In this chart, we can observe that there is a different level of abstraction in the case of reference or substitution and ellipsis, a primary source of presupposition, and what is presupposed. In the case of reference, level abstraction is in the semantic field. In the case of substitution and ellipsis, is lexicogrammatical. The primary source of presupposition is the situation in the case of reference, and in substitution and ellipsis is the text. And what is presupposed in reference are meanings, and in the case of substitution and ellipsis are items. It could be words, groups, clauses, or verbs. We have conjunctions too as markers of cohesion. There are words or groups of words used to connect words, phrases, or clauses. These conjunctions could be coordinating, additive, adversative, causal, temporal, and subordinating. Speaking about lexical cohesion, continue with Halliday and Hassan, there are no perfectly clear criteria for deciding just how far this principle can be extended, but it is often possible to be guided by the context. Lexical cohesion could be by reiteration or collocations. To evaluate coherence, we have to consider four aspects. First of all, the very general principle of interpretation of language in context, the semantic relationships with meanings, fewer formal linguistic features, and vocabulary choice. To conclude, Halliday and Hassan explains that a text is a semantic unit and affirm that any piece of language that is operational, functioning as a unity in some context of situation, constitutes a text. It may be spoken or written in any style or genre. So it is important not forget that any kind of writing or oral presentation, no matter who the audience is, must make sense. In that way, coherence and cohesion ensure that the text functions well, not just as a collection of sentences or a paragraph. Thanks for your attention.